Well, the administration has done something so incredibly cruel, not to mention illegal, that it's hard to believe we're living in the same country we were in just 5 months ago. And for any hardcore MAGA supporters who identify as Christians, even you will have to agree that this is bad. In fact, in a few minutes, I'm going to show how this goes against biblical teachings so clearly that no Christian should be supporting it. But first, I just received an email from Pat Conkey's new Substack. He's a wonderful former pastor from, I think, Minnesota. Why do I always mix up Minnesota and Wisconsin? I don't know. I'm from Georgia. It's next door to Alabama, and nobody ever mixes up Georgia and Alabama. I think he's from Minnesota. He has a YouTube channel called Culture, Faith, and Politics. And if you enjoy my content, you'll definitely love his. So I'll put a link to his channel below. But as I was working on this episode, he sent an email about this exact same subject, saying so many of the same things that I'm saying. But I wanted to share a quote from him because it really sums up what I'm going to say today. He said Donald Trump's power and the power of his movement rest on this fatal contradiction. The very people who support him are the ones whose stated beliefs are most opposed to his cruel agenda. It's so true, and he said that so well. I wish I could say things as succinctly and perfectly as that. Anyway, this is about Abrego Garcia, the father of three, a man with no criminal record who sought safety in the United States after fleeing danger in El Salvador. He came here in 2019 and applied for asylum the legal way, and an immigration judge looked at his case and said, yes, he qualifies for protection. He is not to be deported because he would be in danger if he was sent back. So last week, in a stunning ruling, the Supreme Court said the administration has to bring Garcia back. But that's not the stunning part. The stunning part is that it was a unanimous ruling. We all know how rare that is. But to make it even more stunning is the fact that all six of the justices on the Supreme Court who were appointed by Trump ruled against him. They said you got to bring him back. And yeah, it's true that from time to time, one or two of them have gone against the president on one issue or another. But I don't know of any issue where all six of them have gone against him. Maybe there's one, I don't know. Anyway, but that's how clear it is that he violated the Constitution by shipping Garcia to what basically amounts to a gulag in El Salvador. I mean, even Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito got it. That's pretty clear. The administration has already admitted that they made a mistake in sending Garcia there. So you'd think they wouldn't even need a Supreme Court ruling to tell them to do the right thing. A great president would have simply said, you know what? We made a mistake, and I'm going to call President Bukele and have him put Garcia on the next plane home. But that's not what he did. And the reasons I think are he didn't do it are pretty disturbing, but that would be the subject of a whole nother video. It's not really what I want to get into here. But the short story is I believe he wants to set a precedent where he can literally pick up anybody. And by pick up, I mean basically kidnap. He could pick up anybody, citizen or not, and ship them off to a prison in a foreign country and then just say, well, I can't get them back because they're in a foreign country now. I have no control over that. I think that's why he ordered President Bukele to tell the press today or yesterday that he would never send Garcia back. But a full analysis of that isn't really what I want to do with this channel. What I want to do is show how this reflects on Christ and Christianity. Because Christians and people who identify as Christians have been the main driver behind this president's rise. And pretty much any significant thing he does reflects on us and our faith. And to the extent that we don't denounce it or criticize it, then it really reflects upon us. Because what the world sees is that we're the ones who supported this president and played a large part in putting him where he is now. And he's doing terrible things now in our name. And they see us as still continuing to support him, even despite all these things. And they think, well, if that's what Christianity is all about, I don't want anything to do with it. And as a Christian and a former lifelong Republican, I totally understand where they're coming from. I mean, you don't even have to be a Christian to get this. If you're a real conservative who's not a Christian, you get this. If you're a liberal who's not a Christian, you get this. It seems everybody sees it except Christians. I mean, even all 9 justices on the Supreme Court saw it. But it seems it's only Christians who don't see it, or at least people who call themselves Christians. I think honest Christians need to understand that, and we need to publicly call this out for what it is. It's a horrific wrong. We need to put our faith above politics and not be afraid of criticizing bad actions that come out of this president. You might not want to criticize him because he has some policies you like and you don't want to hurt him politically. So you keep quiet, or worse, you actually speak out in favor of this. If what you hope he's going to do for you, though, politically, is more important than standing up for what's right, then you're putting politics before your faith. And you might ask, well, what does this have to do with Christianity? What does it have to do with the Bible? How could the Bible possibly have any bearing on what we do concerning immigration? We have a lot of bad people here and we need to get rid of them. And you may think none of this is a biblical concern, but how we treat people is always a biblical concern, especially immigrants, which are specifically mentioned in the Bible several times. So let's first take a real quick look at where Garcia has been sent, because you have to know the whole story to make a judgment on it. And the three main parts of the story are who he is, where he's been sent, and how he was sent there. So let's take a look at those three things. First, a little bit about who he is. He has never been convicted of a crime in the United States or in El Salvador, not even a traffic ticket in the U.S. The only time he broke the law was when he crossed the border into the United States, which he did nonviolently. He then applied for asylum and was granted a stay from deportation until that claim could be worked out through the system. People are allowed to cross the border illegally if they're coming for asylum and if they immediately apply for asylum. Then the illegal border crossing is allowed, but they have to prove that they were really the target of some serious persecution back home. And that takes several years for USCIS to determine. So while he was waiting for that process to work itself out, a judge ruled that he couldn't be deported back to El Salvador during that time. But the Trump administration, knowing all this, decided to pick him up anyway and put him on a plane and send him to one of the world's most notorious prisons. They did all this while depriving him of his rights to due process and any ability to plead his case or even present the fact that he had been allowed to stay legally by a judge. Just look at these pictures. There are hundreds of men stuffed into a large cell that looks like it should hold maybe 30 or 40 men. And this is in a prison system that's one of the deadliest in the world. Everyone in this prison is deprived of due process. None of them have the right to go to court and challenge their sentences. These are basic rights that all Americans are entitled to. And immigrants in our country who have been allowed to stay legally are also entitled to these rights. But in this prison that our president has contracted to hold people we don't want, no one is entitled to these basic human rights. So let's take a listen to how Noah Bullock, the executive director of an international human rights group in El Salvador, describes prison conditions across El Salvador.
We've documented systematic physical beatings, torture, intentional denial of access to food, water, clothing, healthcare, and the combination of both the physical abuse and the denial of basic needs has led to the death of at least 368 people, according to our investigations.
So here are the two main things to keep in mind if you're a Christian who publicly supports everything this president does. I want you to look at what you're supporting here. You're supporting first physical torture. You're supporting systematic beatings. You're supporting a loss of due process. And who are you supporting all this for? You're supporting it for a man who has never committed a crime, who was in this country legally, and who the administration admits was wrongly deported. And You're supporting it for a man that a unanimous Supreme Court has ordered to be released. Now, if you're a Christian who publicly supports MAGA and all these things going on, what impression do you think this leaves on non-Christians about what Christianity is all about? Because they can't physically see Christ with their eyes, so they're probably, if they know the ones who know you, they're looking at you. They're looking at you because you're one who claims to follow him. And they're looking to you to get a clue as to what he's all about. And what do you think they see in you? They see someone who supports torture. They see someone who supports a lack of due process and fair treatment, and all of this for an innocent man. And they see you cheering it on. What kind of impression do you think that gives them about Christ? Obviously not a good one, but in this case, not even a biblical one. There are tons of passages in the Bible that speak to this, but let me mention just a couple. Micah 6:8 says, "The Lord has told you what is good, and this is what he requires of you, to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Well, I've already established that what we're doing isn't right. It's not right to send an innocent man to a torturous prison, a gulag, without even giving him a chance to defend himself. Even the Bible grants the accused the right to defend themselves. So that's not only a violation of a basic American right, it's a violation of a biblical right. It's a violation of basic fairness. And loving mercy, if you support this, you're making a mockery of mercy. And God isn't silent about this kind of injustice. In Exodus 23:9, God says, "You must not oppress foreigners. You know what it's like to be a foreigner, for you yourselves were once foreigners in the land of Egypt." Now, that doesn't mean we have to let every foreigner in who wants to come, but it does mean anyone who's here, we have to treat them kindly and with fairness, especially those who haven't committed any crimes. And here's one last passage from Scripture. Proverbs 31:8 and 9 say, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed." Yes, speak up for the poor and helpless and see that they get justice. Abrego Garcia is being crushed by our country, by our president and this administration. And if you're a MAGA Christian and you're not speaking out about it, and people know you're a Christian, they think this is what Christianity is about. Justice is not some woke liberal concept. It's a biblical command, and it applies to people exactly like Abrego Garcia. So why are so many Christians quiet about this situation, or even approving of the cruel way we're treating this man? Why are pastors preaching secure borders, but not preaching justice? The Bible has a lot more to say about justice than it does about secure borders. So I don't even know if it says anything about secure borders. Maybe there's some principles laid out that would apply to it. I don't know. But I do know it speaks specifically about immigrants in several different places. So why are these pastors spending all their time on something the Bible spends precious little time on, if any at all? And they're spending no time on what it spends a lot of time on, which is justice and immigrants. But they're spending all their time on secure borders, as if it's a biblical command that you must have secure borders. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with secure borders. Every country, of course, should have secure borders, but not at the cost of justice for people, not at the cost of crushing people, innocent people. No, that's not biblical. This moment is a test for the country, and especially for the church. Will we follow power or will we follow Jesus? Because they're going in two very different directions. We can either bow to a movement that jails the innocent and mocks mercy, or we can stand with God who said, "Woe to those who make unjust laws, who issue oppressive decrees to deprive the poor of their rights." That's Isaiah 10. This isn't just about one man. It's about what kind of people we are, what kind of country we want to be, and what kind of God we claim to follow. So if you truly follow Christ, how can you support this movement when it's built on cruelty and lawlessness, when it leaves innocent people to rot in gulags? Today, how are we any different than the old Soviet Union? This is what we used to abhor in the Soviet Union, that they treated people this way. We thought we were better, and we were. But now we're going to that. We're going back to that. Make America great again seems more like take America back to the old Soviet days. This moment is a test for the country, and especially for the church. Will we follow power or will we follow Jesus? Because they're going in two very different directions. We can either bow to a movement that jails the innocent and mocks mercy, or we can stand with God who said, "Woe to those who make unjust laws, who issue oppressive decrees to deprive the poor of their rights." That's from Isaiah 10. And this isn't just about one man. It's about what kind of people we are, what kind of country we want to be, and what kind of God we claim to follow. So if you truly follow Christ, how can you support this movement when it's built on cruelty and lawlessness, when it leaves innocent people to rot in gulags? Today is the day to decide who you're going to follow. And I just honestly, I don't see how it can be both. It can't be Christ and MAGA. MAGA is anti-Christ. It's anti-Christian. It's anti-biblical in so many ways. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about today, and I hope I've given you something to think about, and I hope if you are a MAGA Christian that you will think about it. And if I said anything that's piqued your interest and you'd like to hear more, please like and subscribe. And take care, and I'll see you next time.